This is Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on the zone. The notorious GAD. You
Do
like
you
that one?
drink well hydrate or not?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What does it do for you?
So there's different ones. My favorite one is like you push the cap in and like electrolytes and protein enter the water, shake it, drink it,
Flavor?
lemon and lime.
There you go. Lemon and lime. Wow, hydrate. Get me one next time I see you, please. I'd like to try it.
We'll get a box shipped to your mansion.
Thank you very much.
He didn't deny it. What have you been up to, Gareth?
Well, I was across the event on Saturday night. Very interesting, the Copper Box event. There all week. Saw you a couple of times, obviously, on duty for Talksport. Um, what else? Just kind of getting into the rhythm of the season, really. There's a lot going on. It's amazing that we're still talking about the heavyweights and the light heavyweights. It kind of, everyone I spoke to last week, it was a chat about Beterbiev and Bivol, um, the fallout from Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark, the gloves, what we made of the performances on Saturday night. I'm in swimming season now, so I'm swimming most mornings, trying to get as fit as you are, basically. Um, but yeah, it's good. Boxing feels really lively at the moment. Promotional rivalries, Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya, Frank Warren and Ben Shalom. Um, no, it's good. It's really, really good. Really busy. Very pleased for Francis Ngannou at the weekend, by the way, against Renan Ferreira. I'd picked Ferreira to win that, but my word, Ngannou was on it. Really rounded game. Looked better than he's ever been. 3 years away from the cage. I know this is a boxing show, but obviously Francis fits our Venn diagram these days of partial boxer, even though he's fought two of the elite of this era. Um, uh, but yeah, it just feels really busy. Feels really busy.
Yeah. Now, shout out to Francis. I noticed that, and I guess it might be because, like you said, he fought two of the best of our era. I noticed from a boxing perspective that there was more interest, I believe, than I've seen in a mixed martial arts fight in a while because it was Francis Ngannou. Did you feel that?
It was a pretty big card when you have Cyborg and Larissa Pacheco, Fabian Edwards and Johnny Eblen. AJ McKee was on the card. They were all really big names. It was like a real big crossover event for Bellator and PFL. Yeah, I do think there was a lot more interest in the boxing world from boxing fans into the promotional value of Francis Ngannou, and I think there'll be a lot of fans rejoicing, especially given the year he's gone through with his son passing and you know, at 15 months old. So yeah, I do think there was a lot more, and obviously it was in Saudi Arabia, and it's following hot on the heels of Artur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol and um, you know, the tennis out there as well. Just part of the milieu, part of the mix. So yeah, I do. I think he's done a lot to put himself on the map with everyone. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, big up old man Francis Ngannou.
Oh
Um,
yeah, beautiful person,
yeah,
beautiful human being, dangerous human being. But
yeah, very, very. So
I'll
as
tell you a story about him. When I interviewed him a
oh,
few weeks back, about 2 months ago, I interviewed him in Washington. Was it 2 months ago? Yeah, it was mid September actually. No, it wasn't. It was mid August and late August. And you know, I was saying to him, do you realize that you're so fascinating for so many of us because of your story and what you've gone through? And I didn't mention his son in the interview. And we had a good 10, 15-minute interview. It's for Talk Sport. And and it was at the PFL's Washington event. And I interviewed Jake Paul that day as well. And I was saying what an inspiration his story is, and quite amazing. You know, that does he realize how many people are fascinating what he's gone through in life, fascinated by what he's gone through in life. And he said he took it all in. He was quiet for a minute, and he just said, "Well, man, that just shows me that life sucks. You know, life for me sucks." And I just thought we do glorify people's lives sometimes and the things they've gone through. And I think he's carrying so many scars through what he's gone through. Like, I think maybe he is an inspiration. He will be for so many people, and he's living it at the moment. But the things he has gone through are maybe emblematic for him that he's very unlucky. You know, even though he's lucky, we see him as in some ways, how unlucky he is with the things he's had to go through in life. I thought it was a fascinating thing for him to say. It just really it will stick with me forever, that.
Yeah, I feel like despite the performance he put in against Tyson Fury, as a personality, boxing fans fell in love with Ngannou quite a bit over his Riyadh season stint. It's fair.
He was a lovable loser that night. You know, many people thought he won. People that really supported him thought he won. I thought he lost by a couple of rounds. You know, Tyson Fury fiddled his way through to win by points to set fiddled. They're two massive men. He didn't fiddle. Like, what am I talking about? He didn't fiddle his way through. He
Barge.
had to really dig deep. He had to barge his way through. Difficult fight. Yeah, he has gone into our hearts. So many people I know that aren't fight fans say, "Oh, I love Francis Ngannou. I really love him." Yeah, I'm really, really pleased for him as an aside from what happened in the last few days.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. The copper box. Adam Azim stops O'Hara Davies, who retired immediately after the fight. Loads of mention of Dalton Smith, but we'll put that to the side for a second. A brilliant performance by Adam.
It was composure, control of range, precision, respect for a guy who had a lot of experience, who'd been in against world class. You know, there's three world class opponents he'd lost to. You know, Jack Catterall, Josh Taylor, and Ismael Barroso. But O'Hara Davies, longest arms boxer we know compared to his body, very dangerous. Right hand was around him in the week. He was trying to pull the wool over his eyes that he didn't really care, but you could tell he did care when he was in there. He made Adam Azim respect him from the opening bell, and Azim did. But he slowly and clinically broke him down. Beautiful body shot to begin the capitulation of his opponent, and finished the job really well. It was a left hook, I think it was,
Yeah.
that finished it in the 8th round. Brilliant performance, as you say. I agree. He's not quite ready for a Dalton Smith yet, in my view. I think, well, maybe he is. Maybe they are going to make that fight soon. If they do, great. But it was a sign that he's on the way to being a very special fighter. It wasn't all about flashing hand speed on Saturday night and combos. It was picking his punches really well. Great composure, as I say. 9 out of 10. Absolutely, a 9 out of 10 from me on the night. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah. OD said afterwards that he's the best fighter he's been in with now. I don't want to play skeptic, but obviously Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall, both elite fighters at their pinnacle. I know that's not when OD fought against them. Like I said, I don't want to play skeptic, but do you think because of the niceties between OD and Adam Azim, that was a lot easier for him to chuck out than perhaps give the flowers to
Yeah,
Jack
of
Catterall, who
course.
he had massive rivalries with?
Of course, he's known him since he was 8 years old, and they were in the same Peacock gym together in Canning Town. And he's like a big brother to him, and he's like an elder to him. So the respect, he's passing on the baton, he's passing on his spiritual fighting skills to Adam and saying, you take what you've learned, you've really showed me tonight who you are and what you are. Now take it on and up to that level. He's still not ready for, I don't think he's ready for a Jack Catterall or even a Josh Taylor, or a, and maybe being unfair saying he's not ready for Dalton Smith. It's a great fight to make. They're both at similar stages in their careers. But Dalton, with the win over Jose Zepeda, is probably a step ahead. And probably got a little bit more man strength than Adam, who says he's growing day by day, though, in terms of his manhood. It's a very exciting time. It's a very strong division. Tio Lopez, Devin Haney, Liam Parrow. Is that right? Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, Liam
They're
Parrott fighting Richardson Hitchens for
He is.
title.
But what a 140 division. You can include Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia in that division. It's an extraordinary division. It may be Shakur Stevenson at some point in that division as well. So it's a very powerful division globally. You know, beyond light heavy and heavy, but maybe beyond heavy, it's the most lucrative and watchable matches. If you put them all in, say, a 10-man tournament, 12-man tournament, you've got in boxing.
Yeah. No, it's a sexy division, and we'll wait to see when Dalton Smith and Adam Azim do cross paths, because it's a guarantee that they will at some point. Anthony Yarde returned. If we don't see the Joshua Buatsi fight next, is it a disappointment on everyone's front? Anthony's, Joshua's, Ben Shalom's, us as fans? It's
Well,
quite overdue, I would say. Is it overdue?
Yeah, well, I think Yarde. I mean, as Ben Shalom revealed to me last week, the full intention was to make that fight at Crystal Palace, and obviously it didn't come off for one reason or another. Boxing politics, or politics, actually, or contractual situations. I think it's the time is ripe. We haven't had a verified 100% notification that it will be Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol next for all the belts. I'm almost certain they will fight. We've got to see it. As we both know, we witnessed an event that hasn't really had its denouement yet. It needs playing out more. People are completely split on who won. A very close fight out in Saudi Arabia at the launch of the Riyadh season. Just, when was it? 9 days ago. God, it feels like ages ago, weirdly.
Still the biggest talking point in the sport.
Sorry?
Still the biggest talking point in the sport right now, 9 days on.
It is. It is a big talking point. And last week, the gloves of Fabio Wardley were a talking point as well. It was a really big event. Ben Whittaker was a big talking point. Chris Eubank, Conor Bennett. It had so many storylines that kind of snaked onwards and upwards for the next week. And we're still talking about them in many ways. I think if that fight gets announced, I think we've got to have Buatsi. If Beterbiev and Bivol 2 is announced, we've got to have Buatsi and Yarde. And it may even be for one of the belts. If all 4 belts aren't still on the line, they could maybe create a belt for it, and the winner of that fight's the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol, who might even go on and have a trilogy, for God's sake. Bivol wins. So I think it makes sense to have it next. And on the strength of Saturday night's performance, I think you probably have to make Buatsi a big favourite, because it was a very weird fight, because milliseconds, as I called it at the time, milliseconds into the fight, Yarde pops Ralph Wilkins with a right hand and sends him spiraling backwards. And then it doesn't seem to be able to hurt him after that, because I think he sat back and wanted to get a few rounds under his belt. That's what I thought. And I saw Anthony speak to Ralph afterwards in a clip where he said, "You kind of threw me there because I thought I had you, and then you came back into the fight." But I do think mentally he relaxed a little bit too much and allowed Wilkins into the fight. Wilkins got his mental strength and believed in himself. And they ended up doing, 10 rounds in the end? Shouldn't have gone 10 rounds with that guy. No need.
Yeah. I mean, so if you are to say Buatsi's the favourite now, obviously he's always had the amateur pedigree of the two. But there was a time when Yarde was in with Kovalev and Beterbiev, when Buatsi was probably still fighting at least at European level or below. Has Anthony Yarde ever been a favourite in that fight, would you consider? Because obviously Buatsi turned over as, a superstar, as an Olympic medalist. So has there ever been a time, do you think, where Anthony Yarde's been favourite in that combination?
Well, I would correct that. I don't think he turned over as a superstar. I think he turned over as a great prospect.
Potential superstar rather than.
A potential superstar. He's still a potential superstar. It doesn't. I would love to see, and this isn't a criticism of Joshua Buatsi. I enjoyed the Joshua Buatsi that was grabbing the neck of Willie Hutchinson. The Joshua Buatsi who had the bit between his teeth, that had a bit more ire about him, about a bit more irksomeness. Because I think that Joshua Buatsi, that's what's deep inside him, and I think we want to see it a little bit more. And it's been a slow burn. Listen, he's a very, very talented fighter. He's a beautiful size for a light heavyweight. He's a great human being. But I like to see the spite in him. I like seeing the nastiness because we know he's a great human being. We know he's a deeply spiritual man, a man not given to wasting punches and wasting his breath selling fights. But I want him to sell fights a bit more. I thought his performance against Willie Hutchinson was really impressive because Hutchinson is a very difficult guy to fight. No question about it. His intent on the body in that fight, the punches to the body were amazing. Apart from a small period of time, I've always made him favourite against Anthony Yarde because I think he'll outbox him and he'll outslug him in the end. Not in terms of a toe-to-toe power match, but in terms technically, I think he's ahead of Yarde. And I think we saw that on Saturday night, that Yarde relaxed and he didn't break Wilkins down technically. Or I think if you threw Anthony Yarde in at Wilkins again, he'd knock him out inside 3 rounds. I think he could have jumped all over him. But that's just the way things go sometimes. I make Buatsi a favourite, but it's a terrific fight. Oh, it's a terrific fight. If those two go 12 rounds, it's going to be amazing because Yarde has got something special in him as well. Guy with no amateur pedigree to speak of, remember, literally. And Joshua has come through the traditional route of the Institute of Sport in Sheffield, the English Institute of Sport, that formidable group that he's been a part of around Anthony Joshua and Joe Joyce and Lawrence Okoli and all those. I think Lawrence was in that group as well. Yeah, he was. Lawrence was in that group.
2016.
Yeah, 2016, exactly. You know, it's a fantastic fight. They've been on a collision course probably for 2.5 years, but now is the time because there's money invested in the sport. We're into the light heavyweight division. People care about it outside Beterbiev and Bivol. It's the best fight in the light heavyweights. Unless you bring no, there isn't really anyone else. I was going to say unless you bring no, there's no one. Those 4 are probably the leading 4 in the division, I'd say. And you know, I'd love to see one of those Brits against either Beterbiev or Bivol again. And given that Boxer and Ben Shalom have signed a deal with DAZN, whether it's just sponsorship or whatever it is, it's still fantastic that there's a possibility of that even happening in Riyadh because they'll get paid really well, you know. Not that wouldn't sell out an O2 Arena, which I think it would, but they're better off with, I think personally, with having a great fight out there as part of the Riyadh season. It's a shame they're both with Ben, and well, not a shame, but what I'm saying is that could have easily been on the February card, in my view. But they're not going to get signed up by Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, I doubt so.
Maybe we could have a special feature, one boxer fight on the card as well. Boxer versus boxer. Yada yada. Boxer versus boxer as the co-main event with Joshua against Dubois as the main event, and then 4 other Hearn Warren fights. That would make a brilliant card, wouldn't it?
Do you think that Eddie and Frank would?
So up to them. I'm thinking. Well, yeah,
No,
but
I mean, do you think that if that was a fight, that Frank and Eddie would want it to be a draw, so they could then have Ben Shalom sitting there with no winner?
I don't think Ben Shalom would mind because they'd just do a rematch.
True.
But what we're doing right now, the lovely thing, and this is what people I think need to appreciate about boxing at the moment, is you can dream these fantasy fights. I'm dreaming all the time. And I think I was one of the first people to say Nick Ball and Noya Inoue, and I've really pressed it. And a lot of people have talked about that fight. I really did push it out there from a couple of months back. And you can fantasize, you can have fantasy fights at the moment, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility that it might happen. That's what's brilliant at the moment. It's so exciting.
The show at the weekend, Adam Azim doing well. I saw a smile on his face, and I said that probably feels quite good after what's been like a tough 11 and 12 days, where from every angle, Ben's been taking quite a bit of fire.
Well, as I've said to him, this is a great learning period for him. It's great to why not be under pressure? Pressure makes diamonds. I said to Ben, and I mean it sincerely, you look back on this period as a period of great growth, because this is a time when he has been able to take the heat, maybe see some errors of judgment. I mean, like the gloves, I think he got caught inadvertently in something he probably didn't mean to get caught in. He clarified it on TalkSport with us on Friday afternoon at the weigh-in with myself and Spencer Oliver. Did need to clarify that because Frank Warren was very unhappy about his comments, and I do understand that. And as with the glove manufacturers, because and also I think what he said was escalated by the kind of oxygen of publicity. And as he said, I was just passing it on. He probably wouldn't do that in another way and do it publicly the next time, I imagine, because it sounds like you're saying something underhand might have happened with the gloves. And I don't think it did. I don't think there was any suggestion of that. It was just that someone had raised a concern. Well, keep it to yourself. Go and investigate it, because gloves not being conformative is a big thing in boxing. It's a it's obviously just a weapon, isn't it? So if you go back in the history of boxing, the idea that loaded wraps and all of those kind of things, and gloves with the old story about horseshoe in a glove, all that kind of the apocryphal stories, those kind of things, very they're seen as anathema to the sport. They're seen as heinous. They're seen as crimes. So in many ways, I think Ben fell into a hornet's nest, and he didn't mean to inadvertently. I'm glad he's clarified it, because it made me go and check with the Boxing Board of Control, Oscar, last week, and check with Frank Warren, and check with Ben, and check on what procedure had been gone through. Ben wasn't there at the gloves meeting, but his representative was. I got all that from Robert Smith, who was in Australia at the time, actually, and I spoke to him when he was in Australia this week, and that the gloves had been signed off. There was no issue with the gloves. The glove manufacturer wouldn't have been happy about it. All gloves, there's no such thing as custom-made gloves, by the way. There isn't. It's apocryphal. That's a myth. That's a myth. So whatever people do with their own gloves in sparring or in training, that's one thing. But just to be clear, people watching this don't know what happens. There is a gloves meeting, normally on a Friday night, with the two teams, with the board of control, with the commission, where all the gloves are chosen, signed off, signed, put in a bag for that person for that night, and everybody has agreed on them, and they get to touch them, feel them, look at them, put them on. You know what happens. A lot of people don't realize this, do they? Watching this, don't know that this
maybe
happens.
once or twice I've seen Matchroom, I think it is, do like a little behind the scenes and do a couple of videos from the gloves meetings. But I've been in a couple of gloves meetings.
Yeah, I've been in many gloves
by
meetings.
mistake. Yeah, that is exactly what happened.
And people you don't just roll up with your own gloves and put them on. There is a gloves meeting, and it goes further than that. On the night when the hands are being wrapped before a fight, the other team are entitled to come in, send a representative to watch the hands being wrapped and watch it being done, and the gloves being put on, and the commission's there on the night as well in the dressing room. It's all watched by a commissioner, someone from the other team. This is the great thing about boxing. This is the great thing about licensed boxing. This is all done within the rules. And so when someone sounds like they're making an accusation about the gloves, it makes it sound like something underhand has gone on. If you have concerns about a manufacturer and their gloves, and some punchers like certain gloves, they like Arrayas, or there's a list of gloves. If you go on the Boxing Board of Control, there's a list of manufacturers. Do you know this? There's a list of manufacturers that will tell you, that are used by the Boxing Board of Control, that are verifiable. that you can use with the boxing border control. So you can choose your own type of glove, but they have to fit within the conformity of the rules. So if you did or do have a concern with a certain glove, that's an investigation or a situation that's completely outside the remit of the validity and veracity of the testing system that's in front of us, of the rules that are in front of us. And that's what I checked with last week. It made me go and check that the rules were followed without labouring this point, because we're sucking eggs here because the rules are in place. If there is a problem with certain gloves, then that needs to be made at a board level because gloves have been looked into. And if that's what their issue is, that's their issue. But it's got nothing to do with the here and now in boxing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's good for you to clear that up because, like you said, there probably is
Well, it needs
a
explaining
lot
because
of people
people
back at
people
home.
often don't know,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, there'll be a lot of people watching this who aren't aware of anything aside from perhaps what goes on fight night. Final one, someone who's taken quite a lot of heat. Ben Whittaker now confirmed an ankle sprain on the night. I haven't spoke to you since Riyadh about this, at least on camera. What's been your take of everything surrounding Ben and his fight with Liam Cameron, Gareth?
Well, I think first of all, my immediate reaction and my reaction on the night was we need a rematch, and I think we'll get it. I don't know if it'll be immediate, but that's up to Ben Shalom and Ben Whittaker. Um, Very shrewd of Frank Warren to sign Liam Cameron, put the heat on Ben a little bit, which is nothing wrong with that. Part of boxing practice.
Adds another narrative for the rematch as well.
Exactly, exactly.
Face off.
That's what I mean. That's the whole part of boxing practice with the CE, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I thought Ben was having a hard night at the time. I was there for Talksport. Myself and Spencer Oliver were watching it together. We felt he was having a hard time. We would get, as we do, jabbering away together during the fight. And I don't know if he was looking for a way out, but he had an injury. He didn't want to get to his feet. I'd like to have seen him try and get to his feet, but obviously he couldn't. I'm not one of those people that jumps on people from that side of the spectrum to that side of the spectrum. The guy had an injury. He's a very formidable, great, talented prospect who's got a long way to go yet, who's under massive scrutiny, many eyes on him. He's a fantastic entertainer. But he fought the wrong fight against Liam Cameron. I think he'll fight a different way when they go back in the ring together. And they must go back in the ring together, in my view. But I'm not someone who's going to accuse him of being Ben Whittaker and all these kind of very unfair labels that have been put on him. If certain boxers have done that, because they say they know how a boxer feels and they feel he was looking for a way out, I'm taking it on face value. He got an injury. It wasn't going well for him on the night. It wasn't a good night for him. But people have a bad night. Look at Daniel Dubois. He had a couple of bad nights. And look who he is and where he is now. So I have no further judgment than he had a bad night. He got an injury. The falling over the ropes was a very weird one. I was right there ringside just after that happened, and the referee was complaining about the laxity of the ropes, the elasticity rather of the ropes, and they got tightened up after that bout.
Thankfully,
But
before
it was a very odd moment.
entered the ring. Thankfully, before two bigger men in Fabio and Fraser entered the ring.
Well, it was weirdly that was the same corner where Fabio hurt Fraser as well. And I've got to say as well, I don't know if you've spoken since. Very, very pleased about Fraser not being hopefully anything more than 3 broken parts of his jaw, of his face. Saw him in the airport on the way home. I think we were on the same flight.
Yeah,
Maybe we weren't.
that
Yeah.
one, the 1:40 out of Riyadh.
1:40 a.m. Yeah. But it was nice to get home early in the morning on the Monday. He was in a little bit of pain, but he was still very upright and proud. His mouth was hurting a little bit. He was on painkillers. He was with his wife. But I'm amazed. Well, I'm not amazed because he's a warrior, but he wants to come back straight away. I'd really like to see him take a little bit of time. And I just hope he is genuinely okay. I'm really pleased that he is. But go back to Ben Whittaker. No, it is what it is. He had a difficult night. He had a draw. He had a hard night against Liam Cameron, who's made a name for himself, and I'm really pleased about that. Rematch, please.